160.5 kilometres today on stage 5 from Vittel to la Planche des Belles Filles, which is a climb of some significance in that it's only been visited twice, and both times it's produced the definitive yellow jersey of the race. In 2012 it also announced the start of the Sky era.
Chris Froome is stealing the stage on the day, and Wiggins is going to be the next leader of the Tour. Froome crosses the line, a tremendous show of strength, a wave of congratulations by the next leader of the Tour de France, Bradley Wiggins, in third place. What a battle of the favourites that was.
And that's a bit of a collector's item, Bradley Wiggins and Chris Froome having a hug. Now, if anyone's going to take the yellow jersey from Geraint Thomas today, Froome is the best placed, just 12 seconds behind him. Then there's a gap down to Dan Martin at 43 seconds, and apart from Esteban Chavez, the rest of the contenders are grouped right behind Martin. The biggest threat on current form being Richie Porte.
It's been nice to get through these last days in the position we're in. Obviously, the time trial, we would like to be a little bit closer, but I think today's the first real big test. It's a hard climb, and I expect it's going to be a hard stage.
And Chris Froome loves this final climb. It's one of his favourites. What do you feel about it?
Yeah, I don't mind it so much either. I've done it twice. I was there in 2012 when he won it, so of course it's a good climb for him and Team Sky. They've got a good team for a climb like this, but it doesn't mean that you just look at Sky. There's also Fabio Aru, Alberto Contador, Nairo Quintana, and a heap of other guys. So I think it's going to be as much a tactical thing. You don't want to see one of those guys just take off and no one chase. So we're going to have to see how that pans out.
Now there's the rollout in Vittel. And the day's break, when it formed, was of exceptionally high calibre. An 8-man group featuring 5 riders with 9 Tour de France stage wins between them. Those being Edvald Boasson-Hagen of Dimension Data, Philippe Gilbert of Quick-Step, Jan Bakelants of AG2R, Thomas Veuclair of Direct Energy, and Thomas de Gent of Lotto Soudal. With them were Pierre-Luc Perichon of Fortuné Oscaro, Dylan van Baal of Cannondale Drapac, and Michael Delage of FDJ. The best placed man on GC was Edvald Boasson-Hagen, 16 seconds behind Geraint Thomas at the start of the day. But it was Richie Porte's BMC setting the pace at the head of the main field rather than Sky, and holding the break at around 2 minutes. As we join commentary, the break is approaching the intermediate sprint.
Delage might try and sprint here, the FDJ rider. He might try and take points away from Arnaud Demar's rivals in the green jersey competition. That's a possibility. Gilbert's interested though, but as we thought, Edvald Boasson-Hagen seems to be sprinting full on pretty much to try and get himself maximum points here, and the money that goes with it, and the prestige. Get his nose in the front, win a little sprint. Edvald Boasson-Hagen takes 20 points out. It's pretty close between the two Belgians, Gilbert and Thomas de Gent.
And Gilbert will have been given team orders just try and get by Edvald Boasson-Hagen. Philippe Gilbert is not sprinting for himself there. He's sprinting to get past Edvald Boasson-Hagen, to get more points, to remove points from Edvald Boasson-Hagen's quota, because he has Marcel Kittel behind, who is now seriously chasing that jersey. As you can see, Quick-Step are leading the lead out here.
Marcel Kittel, if you're looking for that green jersey, is no longer in it. That is being worn today by FDJ's Arnaud Demar. He has a healthy lead in the green jersey competition, but this is really a very kind of full-on sprint now. It's the only thing that the sprinters' trains have got on offer on stage 5. And there's Demar, there's the green jersey, and the acceleration in the peloton has also taken a quarter of a minute off the advantage of the breakaway group. Michael Matthews has Sunweb in full flow as well. So Christophe with Katusha Alpecin, Quick-Step for Marcel Kittel. You can see just in front of Demar, who's sitting on his wheel, and then Sonny Colbrelli and Andre Greipel are also sprinting. And it's really only for 7 points maximum here.
Look at this. Once again, we're seeing the Quick-Step train isn't quite right. We saw Stibar just pull off. You see the Quick-Step rider there who sprinted. Kittel's not using his lead out properly. He's relying on now Christophe, Katusha and Sunweb. His own teammates were trying to help him, but he wasn't listening to, he wasn't using them in the slightest. Now we have Michael Matthews. This really is now unbelievably serious for him. He has potential of winning the green jersey.
Yep. He's the heir apparent to Peter Sagan, a similar rider. Michael Matthews wins that comfortably, actually. He'll take 7 points. Kittel will take 6. Alexander Christophe, I think, finished after him. He'll take 5, and then it's really minor little bits and pieces for everyone else.
Look, Michael Matthews, that may as well be the finish line. He's even slightly diving for it.
Yeah.
Now, the Sagan being pulled out, it has just opened up this competition all over again.
All right, Michael Matthews is now on 73 points in the green jersey competition and has signalled his intent loud and clear.
Welcome back. Two of the day's 8 escapees, Michael Delage and Thomas de Gent, have been dropped and caught by the main field. So 6 men still out front, 2 minutes roughly still the lead. And while things are relatively stable before the fight for position at the foot of the final climb begins.
Here we are then, not long before they hit the climb. It's Philippe Gilbert and Jan Bakelants. They're about to take a right fork in the road as they exit the little town of Le Planche-les-Mines, and up they go. And straight away on the start of this categorised climb, David, it is a brutal gradient, and it's not just a ramp, it's extended as well.
It's horrible. So 5.6k to go, as we see the sign. In fact, between here and 5k is a horrible section. They're about 300 or 400 metres at over what I felt about 15% or so, and it's on this big road and straight up. You can see it here. They're going to go around the corner. So many people now. They come around here, they kick up, and in those 300 meters before the 5-kilometer sign, it is one of the steepest moments in the whole race, whole climb.
Edvard Boasson-Hagen brings Pierre-Luc Perichon and Thomas Voeckler unzipped now and out of the saddle onto this steep part of the climb. And there are going to be some riders in the peloton who are now only 48 seconds behind, who just park, pull on the handbrake and can't go on any longer at that pace. And it looks like Edvard Boasson-Hagen is one of them. But he'll dig in and he'll ride his own tempo, and a strong rider like him might just get back on. And then in the meantime, Zdenek Stybar is setting things up for Dan Martin and Quick Step Floors.
So here we see this is exactly the tactic. So Philippe Gilbert, his only tactic was to stay off the front to help Dan Martin, because what they're doing now, they have the rider, the first rider on the road, and now they're leading the peloton. And look how much the peloton's being destroyed immediately. And there's two reasons for that. In fact, this climb is so hard, it's hot, they're tired, but they're only this tired because of the relentless pace that BMC has set all day. So that is one of the tactics they play to make the race harder, to increase the time gaps that potentially Richie Porte can find from this small climb.
Well, if that's the case, then David, I think you've read that brilliantly. That's an immense honour and a responsibility that Dan Martin has in that team, because he's got a rider like Philippe Gilbert, former world champion, great rider, in fully at his service, and that's been used to great effect.
And there he is, Jesse Kwiatkowski now for Team Sky. So even Team Sky, they've not had to do any work all day, and even they've lost the majority of their riders. I think they've got 3 riders around Geraint Thomas, so you'd expect to be Chris Froome, Sergio Henao, Kwiatkowski, but then Dan Martin is just sitting on the left of them, so he knows, as he said, he now has a great responsibility.
And also, it's a sign of great faith in his form as well from Quick Step Floors. They got things horribly wrong in the bunch sprint yesterday. Marcel Kittel and his lead-out train misfiring badly. But Martin, well, totally different kind of rider, totally different kind of stage. Could it be his day? Well, he sits 43 seconds down as well in the general classification. Don't forget that.
If there's one thing that Patrick Lefebvre, who's a team boss of Quick Step, likes more than anything, it's riders that hit their objectives. And Dan Martin, almost without fail, nails his objectives. He gets it done year in, year out. Jack Bauer, mate, doing a great ride.
It's a fantastic ride. I mean, Nairo Quintana has just lost a key mountain domestique. Jesus Herrada, the Spanish national champion, I saw just going backwards. So for a rider like Jack Bauer still to be there is immense.
Look at the speed the peloton's going. They're now closing in on Voeckler. Edvard Boasson-Hagen has closed back on Voeckler. He's just sitting at his pace, but the peloton's there. They're coming up. Now, Gilbert, he knows they're coming. He'll be getting told this on the radio. He knows the race for the win's over, but now what he's got to do is make sure he can help his team leader for this stage.
That's Perichon. He's about to be caught, and that is Thibaut Pinot. Where is he? He is not where he wants to be. The local man, the big French national hope here, one of the two, is going backwards. That is not going to be Pinot's day. It looks like he's just packed in and given up. He's not going to be winning today. Perichon is caught. That's rotten from Thibaut Pinot. That's bad news for France and the high hopes we had for him. We're not going to see him winning today.
And that was the risk of him doing the Giro d'Italia. Well, they knew they did the Giro d'Italia just over a month ago in order to give him a GC opportunity without the pressure of the home nation and wait for nation. And they knew coming in here that he'd have a heavy price to pay for that, and it would have been strange if that wasn't the case. We just saw Mikel Landa moving up the right-hand side of the peloton, the left-hand side of our screen. So Team Sky have 4 riders, and as you were saying before, Ned, they have strength and depth when it comes to their climbing. And look at it. So you've now got Sergio Henao, you've got Geraint Thomas in yellow, you've got Chris Froome, the #1 in his back, Mikel Landa, Michael Kwiatkowski, who's one of the next world champion. They have a phenomenal team sitting there. So Richie Porte is now almost isolated. So his team have done all the hard work all day. Now Team Sky are just taking over and just shutting the race down.
1 by 1. France had a wonderful day yesterday, but Pinot's not going to win. Veuclair has been caught, so too has Perichon. There's Veuclair going back into the peloton. He'll go straight through and out the other end, probably. Edvard Boasson-Hagen was gritting his teeth. He's been caught too and dropping back. You see him there just on the right-hand side of the road. Kwiatkowski looks like he's barely working at the moment. Sky have extraordinary strength at the front of this race, but there's a lot of favourites sitting on their wheels, and the likes of Fabio Aru, I'm looking for that Italian national champions jersey, not evident there, but I'd be amazed if he wasn't there. Dan Martin, Romain Bardet, of course Alberto Contador, Nairo Quintana and Richie Porte, all lurking there and thereabouts.
So Kwiatkowski, Sergio Henao, Mikel Landa, Geraint Thomas, Chris Froome, and there's even another Sky rider a bit further back on the left. That's a Direct Energy rider by the looks of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it Kamjan? Kamjan's going, wow.
Lilian Kamjan, yeah, good spot. The man who you not associate with a big climb like this is on the attack. Good move from Kamjan. Let's see how long that lasts. After Veuclair went on the attack, the next Direct Energy rider, and probably their best prospect and their most valuable rider at the moment, is on the march. 2:28 down in the general classification, 74th. There's no danger really from them, but they want the win. All these riders want the win because, crucially, David, in a congested GC, 10 seconds time bonus on a climb of this short duration could be absolutely key to their GC prospects.
Yeah, everything's important now. As we see, they've got so many riders, Team Sky. It's from Gilbert piling the pressure on still. It's he's looking good still.
Yep.
Kamjan's coming, but look, he's getting reeled back in quite quickly by Team Sky, and it is just whistling down. At the moment, the race is happening from the rear of this group, we're seeing.
Yep.
Nothing's much is happening. Kamjan's attack is good, is impressive, but it's not going to have much of an effect in the race because it's Team Sky who are dictating the pace, and they're setting an infernal pace, all for Chris Froome.
A man who knows this climb better than probably anybody, Chris Froome, with the exception of Thibaut Pinot, who lives near here. Warren Barguil, another French rider, packing in and going down and backwards for the day. Just 6 seconds now separating the yellow jersey from the front of the race. That virtual lead that Philippe Gilbert held for a while of 30 seconds has evaporated, and the race has come back together again. And Team Sky and that familiar train in the mountains is doing its thing once more. Michał Kwiatkowski still has Nieve, still has Henao, still has Landa, still has Thomas, and then, and only then, comes the big favourite for the day, Chris Froome. That is an awesome show of strength with 4 kilometres still to go. Show of solidarity between the two Belgian riders on the attack there. Bakelans and Gilbert. That's the end of Sylvain Chavanel's race for the day.
No one in their right mind would attack now, because those two riders, Geraint Thomas and Chris Froome, have 4 riders still at their disposal.
Galopin's done well to actually go this far up the mountain. In that, it's obviously a sign that he's coming back to some sort of form after the injury. But yeah, Pierre Hollande has been into yo-yo off the back of this group. That's it. We saw Pinot dropped earlier, and he's just going to ride to the top. His day is done, and he's cooked, unfortunately, for those who might have wanted to see him win today.
That's the ice sock that's sticking out. It's putting a tight, then sealed up.
It's a hair extension.
Yeah,
like that for a second. There we go.
So Kwiatkowski, this goes to show. So this is where Quintana misses Valverde, because Valverde would tell it. It's Pierre Hollande who's being dropped as well, because Valverde at this point could launch an attack and provoke some action. So this is the problem when you're missing those key players from your team.
Sorry, David, just that was Roman Kreuziger who I saw being dropped there. Slightly surprisingly, he would be one of the last men who Simon Yates and Esteban Chavez would expect to have in and around them. But still, Kwiatkowski rides on the
He's got about 400 metres left, I say.
A few more pedal strikes of the highest order.
And then you've got Nieve who can take over, Sergio Henao, but they're all going to be reaching crunch point now. There he is, Aru on the left of the screen in his Italian national champions jersey. But Mikel Landa's dropping back, so Mikel Landa can't match the pace. So Team Sky are down 1 domestique, and he hasn't even done any work yet, so they'll be disappointed with that. You can see on the left of the screen the Team Sky rider dropping back. But you have still Kwiatkowski setting such a high pace. There's a chance when he does blow up, there won't be much work for Nieve and Henao to do. But judging from the type of riders they are, if they can take over and still capable, they could take it to the final 500 metres.
Bauke Mollema is the last man standing for Alberto Contador, I think, or has he got one man and Bauke Mollema with him? Contador's still there. He hasn't been dropped just yet.
Kwiatkowski's done.
Kwiatkowski is done, and it's over to Mikel Nieve and Sergio Henao, the winner of Paris-Nice, one of the very, very finest riders in his own right. And Yeah, no, none of the fetters. Kwiatkowski just coming to a complete halt.
And that's a great, I mean, it just goes to show the type of rider he is. He just gave everything to the point of explosion.
There he is.
Now it's just survival now. Just get up, put in your smallest gear, and pour water over your head, and listen on the radio to the fireworks that are going on ahead.
Right, you can see Port with Quintana and Aru just watching Chris Froome's back wheel. Wow. That's where they're sitting.
Enau is itching to go. Sergio Enau, who's sitting on Nieve's wheel, Team Sky, is he honestly does look like he could just attack if he wanted to at the moment. So Team Sky still have a lot of options.
Oh, Mollema's dropped, so Contador has lost Bauke Mollema, whose only job on the Tour de France. He rode the Giro d'Italia, and he will be feeling that in his legs, I'm sure, but his sole function was to be the last man in the mountains for Alberto Contador. So Contador's isolated. Bardet is now isolated. He's lost Villemot. Simon Yates is looking okay, sitting on Bardet's wheel a bit further back. Emmanuel Buchmann, Jakob Fuglsang, Fabio Aru, Louis Meintjes is still there, and that is distilled now down with the exception of Nieve, Thomas, and, well, where's Enau gone?
Enau's gone.
He's
That's
gone.
weird. He's
Yeah.
completely in control.
So Nieve and Thomas are the only unprotected riders, if you like. Everyone else there, pretty much, is a favourite.
Yeah, so there's the white jersey of Pierre Latour, who's done a great ride, actually. I mean, to be there still, because this is absolute crunch time. Aru's, none of them can attack properly yet. They're still waiting. They now know it's all going to play in the last 500 metres. Aru's going. There you go. He's pushing it.
Yeah, he's a muscular rider, and he's in great form. He won the National Championships of Italy in substantial form with great style just the weekend before the Tour de France, and that's an explosive move, and they can't afford to let Aru win this stage and move himself up the standings. He lost a bit of time in the opening time trial, and he starts the day having to make up time on all the other favourites. He's at 52 seconds down in 25th place, so he's taken his opportunity and he's gone early.
So one thing they know about Aru is he has a massive ability to this explosive effort. He can do this. He's got this weird anaerobic ability to do this, but then he'll settle back down into a rhythm. Once he settles back down into that rhythm, it tends to be a little bit slower than the train that Team Sky will be setting. So they won't panic because they know that explosion does a big gap, but now they just have to peg it back. There's Richie Port sitting on Chris Froome's wheel, Dan Martin right behind that, Nairo Quintana. So we really are entering into the end game now. And it's only Simon Yates there with the yellow helmet at the bottom of the screen, who's sitting there looking good, actually. He's still sitting there in his familiar out to the saddle style. And but Dan Martin now, if I could advise him on anything, that would be just never attack. Try and sit on to Richie Port and Chris Froome, good luck, and try and beat them on the line, because he has got a faster sprint than them.
Well, Aru, a bit like Froome, never looks entirely comfortable on a bike, but he delivers massive power, and that big acceleration, no one could match it, no one wanted to match it. 2 kilometres to go. The final kilometre, there's not that much climbing to be done. It flattens out before that little kick with 300 metres to go. So this is the territory he's got to exploit now.
Yeah, and this is the territory. This is what Richie Port now, because he's made the race so hard for his team, and Team Sky, who was so dominant a day ago, now are down just to one rider, two riders.
What's Yates doing?
Oh,
Soft attack from Simon Yates, puts it into a big gear and rides away.
So G has to respond. Geraint Thomas has to respond to this, because now he's entered back into his normal role, which, although he's in yellow jersey, he is now Chris Froome's domestique, and he just looked behind to see Simon Yates. That he looks terrifying. He's just so relaxed. He's in a big gear. He's the opposite. Look at him. I mean, the fact he was, let's remember, in that first time trial, he was the best of the climbers in the time trial. Now, for Simon Yates to do that means he's in some special form, and for him to ride like this, completely in control, I'd say that's that is bodes well for him for the rest of the race, whatever happens today.
So, who is left? Who is left? Rafa Majka is still there from Bora Hansgrohe. I haven't mentioned him yet. He is still part of that, a very elite group. That's the front of the race, though. 19 seconds, 17 seconds ahead of Simon Yates. And, now Froome goes. And Port reacts. And we've seen this before on La Planche des Belles Filles, but he's gone earlier this time. Still got 1.5 kilometres to go. Who can live with Chris Froome? The first attack in a mountain finish from the defending Tour de France champion. Chris Froome has not cracked Richie Port on that particular occasion, but a few others have gone backwards. A first big showing from Chris Froome.
And so people understand the only reason he did that, he wasn't attacking Geraint Thomas. He will know that Geraint couldn't close the gap. He felt that Geraint was weakening. He understood he'd run out of teammates. He now has to take the race into his own hands. So Geraint is now slipping back into, unfortunately for him, his usual role. Chris Froome now has to take the race into... Nairo Quintana's blown off. So Nairo Quintana can't match the pace. So Nairo Quintana's out.
So Quintana's beginning to lose ground. Simon Yates has been blown away by that acceleration by Chris Froome. But still there, Dan Martin and Contador scores starting to go backwards. Dan Martin, Richie Porte, they're all there alongside and with Chris Froome. That's Simon Yates, and that is Nairo Quintana. And Quintana is losing time here, hand over fist to Chris Froome.
Bardet is there, so it's just a few riders. So we've got Dan Martin, Romain Bardet, Richie Porte, and Chris Froome. Now Chris Froome now playing games.
Yep.
Now it's down. Now we've got the best four in the race. So Dan Martin goes, wow. He knows if he wants to win the stage and Dan Martin's a winner, he can't play games. He has to start closing this gap because Aru, contrary to what I said, is setting a higher pace than anybody.
Yeah, it's an immense ride from Fabio Aru. He glances over his shoulder. He's through the Flamme Rouge and he's got 800 metres to go. I said it's a flatter gradient. I'd forgotten about this little bump that he's got to get over, but then it does flatten out slightly and he'll have to time trial his way into that final hairpin and take that final nasty ramp with 300 to go. Aru, though, looks like he might well be able to take the win unopposed here.
Yeah, he was your call for the stage, and he is doing exactly what you said, Ned. I didn't see the Italian nationals where evidently he was incredibly strong, and he's proven that today, because you see the damage he's done. The four guys behind him are the best riders, but GC riders in the race. Well, Dan Martin's best one-day racer in the world when it comes to these hilly races. Now Alberto Contor's dragging back.
A bit of mind games between Porte and Froome there. Porte on the front and looking over to see what sort of pain he's put into Chris Froome, his old mate and his old rival. But up front, this is your winner, thrashing the bike in trademark style from side to side. Last time the Tour de France came up to La Planche des Belles-Filles, it was an Italian national champion who won the race for Team Astana. On that particular occasion, he regained the yellow jersey as well. But Richie Porte attacks the group of favourites. Will he be able to get across to Aru? No, he won't. Fabio Aru, much like Vincenzo Nibali in 2014, is going to take victory here, and he's going to take some time back and improve his standing in the general classification. Meanwhile, that's the battle for second place on the road, and Richie Porte has laid down a marker there. Martin has come past Chris Froome. Aru, though, is over the last bit of the climb. He can't coast. He's got to push out for every second over the line. Aru wins on La Planche des Belles-Filles 3 years after Vincenzo Nibali, and Martin is going to pick up 6 seconds and second place, and Dan Martin is showing that he means business on this Tour de France. An exceptional ride from Dan Martin to clinch second place. 6 seconds to go with it. Chris Froome picks up third. He's now the leader of Team Sky. Emphatically, Geraint Thomas has lost the jersey today. Richie Porte comes over with a shake of the head in fourth place, and Geraint Thomas, who's done his bit for Chris Froome, as Nairo Quintana watches time slipping through his fingers. It's official. Geraint Thomas is no longer the yellow jersey of the Tour de France. Louis Marquez alongside Rafa Majka, they roll over the line. He'll be disappointed, Geraint Thomas. The team will be, well, they'll ask questions about Chris Froome's form for sure. He was beaten for the first time in his career at La Planche des Belles-Filles, and beaten by not just Fabio Aru, but by Dan Martin in particular. An eye-catching display.
Dan, you must be thrilled with that, apart from one thing, you didn't quite get the stage win.
Yeah, that's a hell of a lot of second, thirds and fourths I got in the Tour de France the last few years now. Yeah, you know, but it was a cat and mouse game, you know. When Fabio went, everybody kind of looked at each other, and yeah, he was going super strong, so congratulations to him. But yeah, I knew I just had to wait for a sprint, and even if Fabio was close enough, I could be able to catch him, but in the end, didn't work out.
I know you weren't lacking confidence going into this Tour de France, but it must be even greater now.
It's not really confidence, it's just calmness, you know. I'm just enjoying racing, and I feel no pressure at all, and it's just enjoying riding the Tour de France, and it's a great situation to be in. I mean, the team's on a real roll so far this tour, this year. I mean, #1 team in the world, and you know, it just breeds confidence, and well, it's also calmness that I've got like some of the best riders in the world around me to support me, and yeah, I mean, I had one hell of a season. Whatever happens from now on, it's been a great year, so yeah, we'll just take it day by day and see what happens.
A great ride by Dan Martin today, and an even better one by Fabio Aru, who had 16 seconds over him on the line. Chris Froome was at 20 seconds alongside Richie Porte, although effectively 4 seconds ahead since he took the time bonus for third place. Romain Bardet was at 24 seconds, Simon Yates, Rigoberto Urán and Alberto Contador at 26. Nairo Quintana conceded 34 seconds and Geraint Thomas lost 40 in the race lead. BMC rode hard today, like a team setting their leader up for a big attack. That didn't come, but Richie Porte declared the day satisfying nonetheless.
Yeah, it's satisfying. It's her good way to sum it up. I think my team were fantastic today. They really took the race up. I think Sky didn't really want to go for the stage, but I think it worked out quite well for us.
And people were saying that BMC were burning a lot of matches, but you were desperate for that stage win, weren't you?
Yeah, I was, but I think, we used two guys. We weren't burning many matches at all. I think it was hard on the wheel as well. So, all in all, I think it shows that our team's super strong.
Nairo Quintana and Chris Froome warmed down with a firewall between them, so no vital post-race recovery secrets could be gleaned by the other side, Froome having taken 14 seconds out of his old rival on the climb. As a byproduct of taking time out of everyone, Fabio Aru finally relieved Cannondale Drapac of the polka dot jersey they've had since stage 2, which will take precedence over his national champions jersey tomorrow.
Ma sì, sono felicissimo, è incredibile per me vincere una tappa al Tour, sono veramente felice, mi riguarderò tante volte gli ultimi chilometri da quando ho attaccato perché ho capito insomma di aver fatto una bella cosa.
Simon Yates will be wearing the white jersey, won overall last year by his brother Adam, a distinction slightly lost on the podium staff.
Yeah. I was just saying, all the pony girls and all the staff there for the pony roll. Oh, hello again. I'm like, actually, no, someone different.
It's the other one.
Yeah. But no, I'm happy to be in the jersey, and hopefully I can keep it for as long as possible.
And a funny stage, wasn't it? A very, very difficult climb to judge, and you misjudged it, but well enough to get a good result out of it.
Yeah, no, I'm happy with my ride. Of course, like I said before, I wanted the stage as well. When you have good legs, you always want to try and do the best possible ride. Okay, maybe I didn't win the stage, but that's okay. Fabio was really extremely strong, and I was nowhere near catching him anyway when I tried to bridge, so no, I'm happy with my ride.
As Chris Froome doubtless was with his. He didn't win the stage like he did on his first and last visit to La Planche des Belles Filles, but he did take the yellow jersey like the previous winners of both tours that have climbed this mountain. And of course he took it at the expense of his teammate Geraint Thomas, who will now slip back into the role of super domestique. Their positions from this morning have been exactly reversed, the 12-second lead now belonging to Chris Froome. Fabio Aru is now up to third at 14 seconds, and Dan Martin is rewarded for his aggression too. He's fourth at 25 seconds. In fact, the top 10 is pretty much all contenders now, and still quite tightly packed, with just 15 seconds covering Richie Porte, Simon Yates, Romain Bardet, Alberto Contador and Nairo Quintana. He's the last man within a minute of Chris Froome.
Amazing feeling to be back in yellow. Having said that, I know the race is far from over, and it's only just begun for me.
You've got that comment in early, the race is far from over, because of course you're in yellow, G is in second place, and everyone else must be looking and thinking, right, what do we do next?
Yeah, I think as a team, we're in a great position, first and second. We can take a lot of confidence away from that, and I think it gives us options going forward in terms of being able to play both cards. But I think today went really well. The team did a great job just keeping me out of trouble and then setting that pace on the final climb. If anything, made a little bit of a mistake in the final, giving Aru that much space to go. But with it being flat before that final kick, I think no one really wanted to be left pulling on that point.
Yeah, just last one. I wanted to ask you about that. Aru, a potential contender here, and I guess just low enough in the list of favourites to be given a tiny bit of slack today. Is that what happened?
I wouldn't. He showed already in the Dauphiné that he was in great form, and I think today just confirms that. So I think if anything, Fabio's going to have to be one of the guys who really mark these next couple of weeks.